Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome this distinguished panel to talk about the issue of entrepreneurship. Before we start, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank SAGIA for putting together a marvelous program. I'm sure I've had a good time, and I assume you all have had a productive 2.5 days, so we appreciate the opportunity. And we'll start the discussion of the entrepreneurship topic. I'll call on the various individuals that you see seated here to make some short remarks, and after they are finished with their remarks, we'll have a chance to engage the audience into the discussion. And so if you have any questions, please make a note of them and hold on to them until we have finished with the presentations. So the first speaker I'd like to call on is Andrew White, seated right at the extreme of this panel. Andrew is the Associate Dean for Executive Education at the Said School of Business at Oxford University. He will start us off in terms of how they view this their perspective on entrepreneurship. So, Andrew, it's all yours.
Can I first of all say thank you to SAGIA for putting on such a fantastic conference and inviting us at Oxford Side Business School to participate. I'm just going to spend a few moments sharing with you some insights into the whole challenge of intrapreneurship. And to do that, what I want to do is to start to look historically at really what the challenge is. If you look at the slide which I've put up there, what we can see is that in 1957, there were 500 successful organizations in the S&P 500, so the largest companies in the US. Researchers then looked back at that data in 40 years later in 1997, and found that only 74 of those companies still existed. So what we find is, to begin with, that there is a challenge purely of survival, that if you've been successful, that if you've delivered outstanding products and services, if your business models have changed the world and have allowed you to capture market share, there's absolutely no guarantee that that will continue. But then if you look at those 74, what we find is that only 16% of them outperformed the market in 1997. So there isn't just a journey towards almost destruction, there's also erosion of value within there as well. So this leaves us with a challenge. Why is this so? Now, you all are sitting in front of tablets. You can go onto Google Scholar. You can find mountains of research on entrepreneurship. You can understand how to reorganize a company, to put new processes in. And we in the academic world know that there are lots of case studies where this has happened, and yet still there's a problem. So I want to just put up some to really try and go through, well, why is that so? I think particularly today that there's a real challenge with ambiguity, with complexity, and with systemic uncertainty. I don't need to talk to a room like this about what we've witnessed over the last few years. But recently I was asked to give a presentation on the new normal. And I went back and I looked at where that phrase was used, I thought just over the last 5 years. So when you look over the last 5 years, since about 2008, we've been asking, what is the new normal? And what we find is that there is a craving for some form of structural normality so that people like you can make decisions. And I don't think it's news to you or to me that that is just not a world we're living in anymore. We're living with ambiguity. So really, what that leaves us with is a challenge. And I want to just bring in one other piece of research that's been done, and then I'm going to move on to what I think some of the solutions are that come from areas that we might not expect them to be. So the next piece of research I want to put up was done by Jim Collins and the work that he did on level 5 leadership. And he looked at over 1,400 Fortune 500 companies and found that only 11 of them achieved sustained greatness. This is where they gained stock returns at least 3 times the market for 15 years after a major transition period. So of the 1,400 companies that he looked at, only 11 were in that category of greatness. So the research team asked, what did they all have in common? This is where I want to go with the presentation. They all found that they have what Collins refers to as a level 5 leader at the helm. Now, what do we mean by a level 5 leader? And it's an individual who combines what we call intense professional will, the capacity to really understand and challenge an organization about where it's going and what it's doing. But that in itself is not enough. It's also with a deep personal humility. And it's in the rare combination of these 2 factors that we find individuals who are able to lead enormous transformations. So, what is a level 5 leader? A level 5 leader is somebody who is able to subjugate their own ego to something greater than themselves. That they're not in the job simply because of their identity, their image, their fame, or to attract money. It's not about them and their status, but it's about what they're contributing in a leadership role to that organization and what that organization is contributing to the world. I want to illustrate what I mean by this with 2 very simple case studies. The first comes from ancient Greece, and an author called Sophocles, who wrote a myth about a character called Ajax. Some of you will have heard about the battle at Troy, and where Achilles was killed. There then came a leadership contest. Was it Odysseus who would take over, or Ajax? In his pursuit of the crown, Ajax went mad with rage and jealousy. The myth talks about how he was blinded by the goddess Athena and went into a rage and killed the sheep and goats that they had captured through the battle. He was then so distraught at what he'd done that he'd actually undermined the performance in our terms of his organization, that he took his own life. And we see that Odysseus comes in and is able to actually understand the problems that they had when 2 individuals were competing and gives Ajax an honorable burial. So what we see in modern terminology is the derailment of a leader. The second story is about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And I would ask for your forgiveness here because I am not a scholar of Islam, but I have worked with the Oxford Centre for Islamic Studies to try and understand, are there lessons from Islam that we can also bring to this? The picture that you have here is of the Kaaba at the time that it was being rebuilt around the 6th century. And there's a story where the Quraysh, the local tribes, were rebuilding the walls that surrounded it in order to protect it from thieves and from the weather. And they got to a point where they were going to put the holy stone back into its rightful place. And they went into disagreement, 4 or 5 days of disagreement. And they said to themselves that the next person who comes through the gateway, we will allow to put the stone in place. And the Prophet came through, peace be upon him. They asked him to do this. He led them in a collaborative process, and the stone was put in place. So what do I take from that? That those people were prepared to subjugate their ego to something greater than themselves. So again, we have 2 stories. One illustrating where the problems that go on inside ourselves as leaders with Ajax gets in the way and destroys value. And another story taken from the Prophet, peace be upon him, of where we find that that happens in a more positive way and allows change, positive change, to take place. So, in summary, what I am saying today is that a leader's shadow, unless it is understood, the challenges that we have, the things that drive us to get us into the places that we get into, unless we understand them, can destroy the very value that we're seeking to create. It means that it can be too difficult to say, I don't know, I don't have answers to this problem. To move beyond conflict, to see beyond personal and organizational boundaries, to speak truth and risk being unpopular, And we really needed people who could do that before the financial crisis happened, and to see beyond their own solutions to what their customers' needs are. So, in essence, what I'm saying is we need a different type of leader who can ensure sustained commercial success within an organization. This type of leader is able to understand their own ego, is able to subjugate that to something greater than themselves, and is able to articulate why their organization has a right to exist. And it's from articulating that organization will really find sustainability. So, I've tried to compress a complex idea into a very short period of time. Please forgive me if I've rushed over anything and not made anything clear, but I hope that has contributed something to the debate that we're going to have this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for setting up the stage. As you know, the central theme we are working with is how do large companies encourage entrepreneurship? And Andrew has put forward an interesting thesis that to do this, large companies must develop entrepreneurial leaders. And if we get a chance to the end, we'll come back and explore a little bit more about what it means to be an entrepreneurial leader, perhaps. But in the interest of time, let's keep moving. Our second speaker is Kejun Hong, who is President and CEO of Hanwha Chemical. Kejun, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kejun Hong from Hanwha Chemical Corporation of Korea. It is a great honor to have this opportunity to discuss with many distinct guests and business leaders from various fields about what is required for the blossom of entrepreneurship. Today, I'll tell you how Hanwha Chemical Corporation has fostered and capitalized on entrepreneurship in order to enhance its overall competitiveness. As we know well, diamond is the most precious gemstone on earth. However, the rough diamond does not shine brilliantly. It takes skilled craftsmen to bring out the elusive clarity within a diamond. At the first glance, the most innovative idea may seem rough, just like the rough diamond. It is important this idea given the attention and the appreciation they deserve. In other words, to realize the potential within the idea and to mold it into action plan is the first step toward achieving desirable business outcome through entrepreneurship. Hanwha Chemical has a system in which business or research proposals from employees are evaluated and turned into practical items. A selection criteria, which includes synergy with existing business, experience, marketability, and economics, work in favor of ideas suggested within the boundary. Such a system is most suitable for debottlenecking, plant retrofit, expansion of existing business, and developing new grade products. However, such a process based on the proposal and screening lacks a critical point. Under this process, most innovative ideas outside the boundary are often neglected because of the ideas are not fully developed or the company is unfamiliar with such innovativeness. Hence, what we need is not the tool for evaluation, but the system and the spirit to further develop what seems a rough idea at a glance. This slide shows typical process that Hanwha Chemical applies to deal with the ideas coming from outside of existing business boundary. The key steps are researching and incubating. With this process, after developing such ideas through researching and incubating, we evaluate feasibility of the business in terms of economics and strategic alignment with company's vision. After that, we finally turned such ideas into practical business. In the next few slides, I'd like to share our experience, illustrating how innovative ideas have become the core business in Hana Chemical. As a petrochemical company with high usage of electric energy, Hana Chemical has long carried out energy-saving measures. Eventually, we have reached the point where further energy saving was no longer feasible. We then began reviewing our production process backward, or in other words, starting from the product and ending with the feedstock. This enabled us to identify essential unit operation and energy inputs. While searching for effective energy-saving measures, we stumbled into a rather unorthodox idea. Hana Chemical has a brine electrolysis facility in which electricity is treated as a feedstock, not as a utility. Annual power consumption is more than 2 million megawatt hour, and the power purchase cost is more than 140 million US dollars. Then came the idea of finding a cheaper power source, and this idea was developed into a serious plan of building a coal-fired power plant. As you would imagine, a petrochemical company running a full-size power plant is an idea well outside of boundary. In the year of 2010, we have successfully completed the construction of a power plant that produces electricity and steam for our plant with big cost saving. Meanwhile, another idea surfaced which would take the power plant to the next level. The operation of coal-fired power plant gave another burden to the company: carbon dioxide emission. It is not good considering the trend to mitigate climate change. Our idea focused on how to cut down carbon dioxide emission, and this idea was developed into a plan to enter into a renewable energy sector or solar business. Solar business is quite different from conventional petrochemical business, and we did not have any experience and know-how. We found solar business was promising, and we decided to have a test plan. We built test plan of 30 megawatt cell manufacturing facility, and through the operation of this plant, we got confidence that we can do it. In 2010, Hana Chemical acquired controlling stake in global top 10 photovoltaic cell and module manufacturer, and this business has become the new growth engine of the company. Another typical example is developing story of nano material business. Hana Chemical has developed the proprietary supercritical water oxidation technology. The technology was commercialized for the treatment of wastewater to decompose organic pollutant in water. This technology is also good at making uniform nano-sized particles. The question was posed: why we use technology only for wastewater treatment? After consideration to find out the answer to the question, we have arrived at the nano world. The idea has branched out into different directions through further study. One is cathode material for secondary battery, and the other one is carbon nanotube, what is called CNT. For cathode material, we developed very unique lithium iron phosphate, which shows good performance in secondary battery. And through pilot and prototype test, now we are running commercial plan with growing revenue. For CNT, we have acquired manufacturing technology, and we are developing the application of CNT in various polymers to enhance their property. Today, I have shared with you some of the steps we have taken in order to turn rough idea into a business. Hana Chemical has focused on the following point in order to foster and develop innovative ideas outside the boundary. First, Hana Chemical recognized not only the immediate economic payoff, but also implied innovation as one of the key evaluation criteria. Second, we have strengthened the allocation of the resources to develop this kind of new ideas, manpower, and money. We are not afraid of a failure. We have strong experiment spirit. Third, we are continuously working to build a stronger trust and open communication among the employees and the management. This, I believe, is very important for entrepreneurship to blossom, because employees will only be encouraged to post any suggestion when they believe that their ideas will be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Kangjun. I think you saw two intriguing ideas that have been placed on the table. A theme that you have heard repeatedly during the last few days is that entrepreneurial ideas have to be shaped. So I appreciate the analogy of saying these are new ideas and innovative ideas are like rough-cut diamonds that have to be shaped in order to shine. And I think thank you for sharing with us an example of how real companies can practice entrepreneurship, and that it is not the domain of lone entrepreneurs, heroes who are starting enterprises, that existing corporations can very easily set up processes. So that's great. Lead off for our third speaker, Chris Hyman, who is the CEO of Circo, a services company that was started in the United Kingdom about 20 years ago and has seen phenomenal growth during that period of time, both in terms of revenues and number of employees that they have. So I will ask Chris if you can, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, let me say what a privilege it is to be here. It's a fabulous conference, extremely eye-opening, and I'm delighted to represent our company, Circo, but to be in my own right as someone very interested in global competitiveness. You've heard two of my colleagues on the panel speak already, and I suppose the approach I've taken is really to try and understand why the point that Andrew made right up front, why is there only 20-some-odd companies in 40 years from 500 companies that remained as successful as they did? We have all the research, we have lots of people talking to us about it, many management books. So what is it that has prevented us from actually becoming more entrepreneurial? We seem to know that being entrepreneurial helps us to grow our companies, grow our margins, improve the benefit to our stakeholders and so on, but yet so few of us do it. I think because it's not easy is the simple point. And the session, as you know, is entitled Intrapreneurship. And I believe it's that difficult dilemma of how we breed entrepreneurial attitudes within large organizations. And most of us here today do run large companies. Most of us would claim that we run companies that are entrepreneurial and innovative. It's the first thing that comes to mind when we sell our wares to people who don't know. So the first of my few questions to you today, and it is a provocative approach, is to say, would you, as the CEO or the managing director of your company, would you have given Steve Jobs a job in the 1980s? I call it the Jobs test. Well, most of us, of course, knowing his success and using his wonderful devices, I'm sure will answer yes. But actually, in the closed boardrooms that we operate in, would we really, with the CV that was in front of us and the personality, would we have given him a job? Indeed, his own company fell in and out of love with him over periods of time and felt that they had to bring him back actually when they recognized his brilliance. I think answering that question personally takes us to the nub of the issue we're discussing today, the real truth. The fact that real entrepreneurs don't sit easily within large organizations. Many of the attributes we've seen as strengths in startups can become liabilities in bigger boardrooms and more established companies. Of course, there's the big issue about risk you constantly hear. The stakes are different, they say, when you're starting out with nothing compared to what it's like when you're part of a multi-billion-dollar company. So is that fact or fiction? Is it an excuse we use because of our own insecurities as managing directors and CEOs? All too often, where the startup sees determination and conviction, the large company appears to see arrogance and disobedience. Again, is that true of us sitting around this room, or is it fiction? It appears that large companies are terrified of entrepreneurs. And I try to examine, over my experience, so it's an opinion, why are large companies fearsome of entrepreneurs or real entrepreneurs? What I hear from talking to colleagues and other people that I know in these positions is that we feel that they don't do well in hierarchy within our companies, especially when they're not at the top. They're impatient people. They often are huge risk takers. They're often seen as loners. Working in a consensus is difficult for them. They don't usually build teams and often don't have succession. Often they don't document their success. Others claim that they are mavericks and they fly solo, which is dangerous for big companies. Others say their companies have to be built around them rather than them building something for their company. And of course, age-old critic, they not always have balanced boards to control and measure the risk. But of course, as I'm sure we all know, this fear and suspicion is not one-way traffic. Many entrepreneurs we talked to today are terrified of joining large companies. They fear it would be like putting the flames of their passion in the middle of an iceberg. They fear it could stifle or snout out their spirit of entrepreneurialism. So what should be done? Should we leave these two apart? My answer is no, we cannot afford it. Certainly not in my own company. We have to find a way for these two things to work together, where large companies understand the value of entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs use the benefits of large organizations to bring their brilliance to bear. The large companies need the entrepreneurial attitudes, otherwise they'll die, particularly in today's fast-changing, super-competitive business environment. The age of spinning out entrepreneurial ventures as if they were viral or need to be quarantined, I think is over. It used to be a fad of the 80s and possibly some of the 90s. Now more and more companies are looking at how they spin their entrepreneurial ventures and attitudes in, not out, but into their business. This is what we are trying to do at Serco. And make no mistake, it's not a luxury. It's not because we think we're innovative and great. It's because we feel we have to be globally competitive. And some of those examples, when we started in the UK, we were in one country. Today we're in 41 countries, some 25 years later. We started with 20 million. Today we're nearly 8 billion. And we started with under 2,000 people, and today over 100,000. But the way we did that actually was often seen as an entrepreneurial business. And I'll just share with you some of the things that we believe have helped us along the way. I'm sure we haven't got everything right, and I'm sure we won't continue to get everything right, but a few lessons that allowed us simply to become, from 1 or 2 airports to today the world's largest air traffic control company, to become the leading metro services business, from the Docklands Light Railways, the Copenhagen Rail, to Dubai Metro more recently, and more recently helping your government here with the Mecca Metro, including the setting of Greenwich Mean Time and working in defense and science across the world. All started from very small beginnings, but we had some things that we did that were similar. So this word, intrapreneurship, I don't see it as being about housing big entrepreneurs within large organizations, which is the typical definition. I think it's just some of it. So how do we harness some of these things that we love entrepreneurs for? I talked about the things that large CEOs and boards are afraid of, but the things we love are the creativity, the drive, the uniqueness, the determination they have, the clarity of purpose, the single-minded vision, and of course, the sheer brilliance of their ideas. How do we bring it into our companies, into our teams? How do we make best practice normal practice every day of the week for us? See, I think there's a distinction between the innovative leader and the innovative company. It's subtle, but I think there is one. Often the innovative leader we see as those people, as we think are just entrepreneurs. We think those people who took all the risks and didn't care about growing companies. And the common ones we see today are, whether they're Henry Ford, Richard Branson, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, of course, Steve Jobs we talked about earlier. I believe, my opinion is that these folk were, other than being absolutely brilliant and entrepreneurs, I believe they were the exception to the entrepreneur's rule. I think they used a lot of intrapreneurship. I think that somewhere along the line they realized the compromise that had to be done to allow them to become big companies. And all of them, almost to a person, have also allowed their companies to go on after they were in the hot seat, as it were. So what allowed them to do that? For most of us in this room, the key to success will remain that that will come from recruiting innovative leaders, but I think it'll come from creating innovative companies. It means undertaking, for most of us, a long, hard slog to create an environment and conditions in the company which is entrepreneurialism and innovation, and that those two conditions can flourish. Not just within our own company, but also in partnership these days with other private sector companies, charities, working with governments, NGOs, and social enterprises. I don't think it is our prerogative alone to build great things in the world as companies, but it's to do it in partnership, something that's only come to mind in more recent times for companies and large organizations in particular. But we will have to continue in doing so to build a safeguard that protects our core business. A phrase I heard recently that I found really hit me between the eyes, and that is the advert for the Patek Philippe watch. It says that we never own the watch. We are simply there to take care of it for the next generation. Something entrepreneurs don't think of, but something CEOs need to think of. So how do we balance those two things? I grew up in Africa, and we have a saying there that says, and I think it can be applied to this challenge, and it says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, then take some people with you. Often entrepreneurs are seen as people who want to go alone and want to go quickly, and they leave nothing behind other than the few exceptions. Companies are seen as those who take people with them. They're not very glamorous, they're not very exciting, they might do things that take a long time. How do we put those two things together? I don't know what the absolute answer will be, but here's what we've tried to do at Serco to create this atmosphere. We believe, first of all, it's a cultural issue. It's creating an environment that will allow those things to flourish. So the things we do is we have a very flat structure. It's non-hierarchical. We have a very devolved set of management. Devolution is huge for us. Freedom is at the coalface. Our contract managers have the power. In fact, we don't have a head office. We call it the support office. We allow people to be different, and I talk about it wherever I go. We celebrate diversity in our company, whether it's gender, whether it's nationality, whether it's introverts and extroverts, everybody gets celebrated for what they bring. We don't celebrate mistakes, but we do allow them. I recognize them even at the top in the boardroom. We don't celebrate them, but we recognize them and we learn from them. We study our successes as much as we study the failures. We do encourage people to make mistakes, but small and at an early stage. But that usually has a bit of governance around it that is more than when you've been allowed to run a business. And of course, we have what we constantly challenge ourselves, and often we make the same mistakes, but we have what we truly call governance and not bureaucracy. All too often, big companies, and boardrooms in particular, we hide behind the word governance, but what we really mean is bureaucracy. And someone told me there's a reason why governments sometimes apply bureaucracy, is because it works. But don't forget when you're doing this, to make it work across your world, that you have to make sure that you also don't forget to reward the entrepreneurial behavior within your company. Because if you don't, and if you don't allow this freedom, and you don't have the governance, the non-entrepreneurs won't get involved and they won't help. So, from our short example, we have seen the success spread across the world in a time that we've been very fortunate, and I personally have been very, very fortunate to work with some very inspirational people that have helped grow our business. I hope these things will help you, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more, but this is our view of how we can take the beauty and the skill and the wonderful pleasures of being an entrepreneur, embed them within organizations, and allow large organizations to become intrapreneurial. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. You now have two very intriguing ideas on the table. Andrew talked about the characteristics of an innovative leader, and you heard from Chris the properties and characteristics of an innovative company. And again, we'll have a chance to explore some of these when we get back. But I'd like to get Umar Christidis, who's the founder of ArabNet, the hub of the Arab digital professionals and entrepreneurs. And it's all yours, Umar.
Hello. How's everyone doing today? Great. Can I hear a little louder? How's everyone doing today? Great. How's the day been going? Great. Excellent. So I've been asked to speak about intrapreneurship, but I really come from a small company that works with young people in the digital space. We run the biggest conference for young people in the web and mobile industry. And so I thought about how the world of digital is changing the workplace and entrepreneurship in general. So why intrapreneurship? Why is it important to talk about this? Well, we've covered some of the big corporate problems. As organizations get bigger, they become a bit hierarchical and bureaucratic. It gets harder for ideas to come, to move through the company, harder for information to move through the company, harder for young people who may have really innovative ideas to get those ideas to senior management. At the same time, companies can become slow, right? By the time that the company notices a trend that's going on in the market or an opportunity, and then is able to get the buy-in of senior management, come up with a plan for how they're going to execute, a smaller, more nimble company has already capitalized on the opportunity and built a product that serves that market need. So then we talk about traditional intrapreneurship, right? So how do big companies solve this problem? They identify individual entrepreneurs in their companies. This is what we've been hearing already. Identify those individual entrepreneurs who have the drive, who have the passion, who have the ideas to be able to come up with innovative new product lines. Empower them, give them the resources and the authority that they need to take those ideas to fruition, and encourage them and reward their risk-taking behavior even if they fail, because that continues to encourage them to do innovative things. Now, what I want to talk about is the fact that digital media changes things, right? The internet has allowed people to communicate very quickly. It allows the real-time flow of information everywhere within the company, and employees are using social media and digital media in all sorts of ways that are outside of the formal procedures and processes of the company, right? They're collaborating, they're sharing information over chat, over message, over Facebook, over Twitter. And this is changing the landscape of innovation within a company. So then what is the new intrapreneurial organization? And what I'm positing is that instead of thinking about it as an individual-based innovation and intrapreneurship, we should think about how we can collectively think about an entrepreneurship within the organization. How is everyone within the organization an intrapreneur? How can we leverage their skills, passion, ideas to come up with creative and innovative new products for our business? So, if we look at intrapreneurship, then it's about ideation and execution, coming up with innovative ideas and turning them through our business processes into new products and business lines. So in terms of ideation, digital media allows us to do crowdsourced innovation, right? And crowdsourced innovation is the concept that we can create open platforms for all of our employees to participate in the process of ideation. We can collect information, we can collect ideas from everyone within the organization. And many companies have been doing this very successfully, right? There's an example of IBM. They had something called an innovation jam in 2006, and over 100,000 people from 160 companies, 160 countries, sorry, participated in a company-wide brainstorming session over two 72-hour periods. And this fertile brainstorming session created a lot of ideas for IBM to grow their business. Similarly, the CTO of Xerox, when putting together her technology plan, instead of doing it with herself and her senior management team, decided to create a wiki, which is a document that's editable by anyone who has access to it. She decided to create a wiki and invite anyone within the R&D organization to contribute ideas and for this technology plan. And the result was that she created a much more robust technology plan by leveraging the knowledge and ideas of all of her team. But this doesn't stop at internal, right? It doesn't stop at just within employees in our company. Why don't we also crowdsource innovation from outside the company? Why don't we let our customers, our biggest fans, come up with ideas for us as well? And Starbucks did this really well. They came up with an initiative called My Starbucks Idea. More than 100,000 ideas were generated for new beverages, new ways of doing business, ways to improve the atmosphere, new locations, all of which drives innovation in Starbucks' business. So we've thought about ideation. Now, what about execution, right? How do we leverage this digital era to create, to reorganize our business in a way that allows these people, individuals, to work collaboratively? And what I will talk about here is self-organization, right? And one of the biggest, and it's an example that's listed in the description of this panel is how Google gives its engineers 20% time to do whatever project that they're interested in. And when these people have this 20% time, they don't go off and work alone, right? They come up with an idea, but then they form into teams naturally. They self-organize. They assign each other roles. They decide on what their milestones are. Everything happens organically. And this is what digital media allows us to do, to create flexibility in the organization that allows people to assign themselves the activities that they're interested in. So, what should the CEO do to leverage the power of all of his staff? 1, create platforms for communication. There are a lot of different kinds of software that allow this. For example, I'll talk about Socialcast. It's a software that allows real-time information flow and exchange between staff. And it also has something called the Town Hall feature, where you can do something very similar to what IBM or Xerox did, right? It allows the senior management to have an open forum discussion for everyone in the company to contribute to the strategy of the company. 2, articulate vision and open data. If you share data, if you share your vision with staff, it empowers them to be able to look at what the problems are and come up with solutions for your business. And 3, allow some flexibility in the organizational structure. Allow people to be able to organize themselves, right? If we take the work and chunk it up into little pieces and then allow people to select the pieces that they're most passionate about and that they're most suited to, we come up with a much more efficient and robust organization. So, you might ask, is this going to lead to general chaos, right? Like everyone's doing whatever they want, whenever they want. Ideas are coming from everywhere. There's no more order. But this is an important step into the future of what the organization looks like. And Eric Schmidt has a great quote about this that I'll read out to you. He says, "It doesn't feel like you have the kind of control over the way in which decisions are made that you might have had in a more traditional environment. But how do you make this work? Well, you talk about strategy, you get people excited, you tell people what the company's priorities are, and it all works out." Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar. Once again, one of the themes that you have heard repeatedly over the last 2 days is that entrepreneurship is not the lone act of an individual. It is really a process of co-creating with self-selected stakeholders. And Omar has brought to you the power of social media technology as a way of harnessing that group of self-selected stakeholders that can help you generate entrepreneurial ideas. With that, we move on to our last speaker, Michael Lindenmayer, who's the co-creator and managing partner of Irene, a private holding company that is focused on purpose-driven ventures in sanitation, aging, education, and other areas. So, Michael, thank you.
Good morning, and I want to thank Sagia for the opportunity to speak, and I saw that you gave an awesome welcome to Omar, so I would hope that I get one just like that as well. I'm the last speaker, so I hope it's good. All right, okay, right there, good stuff. How many of you have a family business? Raise your hand all the way so I can see. I'm looking straight into blinding lights. How many of you work at a conglomerate? We're talking about big companies. Okay, good. So maybe about half the room. And the other half, you're probably working somehow with one of these two. So we are a family business. We are actually 4 families that have come together. And each of these families have been in business or philanthropy for at least 3 generations, and one of them's been in it for 7. So we are going to share some of the lessons we've done and some of the new things we're trying to do to keep that going. So the world breaks down into, if you're in a family, you have the people who are like, the world's going to be awesome tomorrow. Let's go do great things. And you have the other half of the house who say, oh, no, no, no. Times are bad. Let's stay home. Let's keep our money. Let's not venture out. And that, I think, is one of the big things that causes wealth destruction and how there's only 47 companies that are left standing. It's actually when the market is terrible that it's the time to advance. This is when the resources are less expensive, when the opportunities are unclear for most people, when most people sit back in their cave and fret. It's the families and the companies who innovate who will move forward. Now, the way I see it is if you're in a conglomerate, you have the grumpy grandpa. My grandpa was super grumpy. In fact, he was actually a very tough business guy. But then the newborn's not so easy either, right? They kick, they scream, they keep you up late at night, you're nervous. So whether you're trying to protect the old business or you're trying to grow the new one, it's going to be a tough ride. So you might as well go for the new one and learn from the old one. Now, wouldn't it be awesome if you could say that you're just going to invent like a factory? We had the CEO of 3M speak here, and they're amazing. I have a great respect for them. But it's not linear how their products are created. Is anyone familiar with the Post-it note? I mean, this is a digital age. I don't know if anyone uses it anymore, but has anyone used it? Yes? Right, great. So fantastic. That was some guy stuck in the research basement who was supposed to make a super strong adhesive, like super glue. But evidently, he made a super weak one, but it still stuck. And so 3M had this very interesting culture where, you know, the idea didn't work, but they had internal seminars where they could talk about their ideas. And a couple years later, another guy was like, hey, wow, I'm in like the paper department, you're in the adhesive department, let's do a mashup. And a cool new product was born. And you see this over and over in companies that encourage this kind of open communication that Omar was talking about. Now, if you don't do something in your conglomerate or in your family business to unlock this intrapreneurship, they will leave. You will breed clock watchers. Anyone seen the clock watcher? Like, it's 5 o'clock, I'm looking at a watch now, but they want to run on out of here. You know, they can't wait to be done with their work. That is not the culture you want. The companies that survive generation after generation have their people either tinkering or thinking about how to grow. So, easier said than done, right? Particularly when it's your own money. If you're running someone else's money, your big fear is they're going to nix you as the CEO. You're going to lose your job. But when it's out of your own pockets, I can tell you, it hurts. So when I speak about entrepreneurship and the willingness to do this, I have skin in the game. Now, the question is, do I get it right all the time, or do my partners? The answer is absolutely not. So what we try to do is take on something so big that if we get it wrong the first time, we can move around in the space and find where we should land. So the areas that we're focused on are sanitation, not a glamorous business. Anyone want to guess? And Jack, you're not allowed to answer. How many people don't have a toilet in the world? Any numbers? Silence. What do you say? 1 billion? It's 3 billion. Yeah, it's just short of 3 billion. It's 2.6 billion, and it's probably the other 400 million who have pretty bad ones, actually. So Jack, who's here, if you haven't had a chance to meet him, you should actually talk to him as well as one of our partners. And our goal is to build a 1 million toilet network. In a very few short months, we were able to, experiment, prototype. In a year and a half, we were able to get 60,000 clients. And now we're well on our way to go towards that 1 million mark, and we're in 6 countries. And these are the kind of things we like to take on. What will be the best toilet? I have no idea. I'd like one that's clean and works. But the idea is that, we will learn, and it's a big area. Now, I've heard nonstop since I've been here that entrepreneurship is the future. But as soon as you go to your boss and you say, hey, I would really like to do something, there's like, yes, here's 55 forms you have to fill out, talk to this department, go over there, give me 55 business plans. You put so many roadblocks in the way of these people, and Omar talks about open-sourced information and collaborative platforms. You have to, as the owner, be willing to remove those roadblocks. Point them to the forest and say, please make me a path. At least point them to the forest. You have to agree on which forest you're going for, but then they have to make the path. Now, Steve Jobs, Chris said he's not an awesome guy. You wouldn't have hired him. I would have hired him for sure. He probably wouldn't have wanted to stay, but I definitely would have brought him on my team. And I think one of the things that's really interesting is, here one day, this guy is sitting, and he's making a desktop. And while EMI, a big music company, was there with all the data, Steve Jobs comes in and creates iTunes and eats their lunch. Boom, straight to the stomach. He knocks them down. He was thinking differently. Microsoft. How many people know that Microsoft is one of the world's biggest video game makers? Anyone? They made the Xbox. But somehow, while they were, focused on, all these cool video games, they missed the fact that people liked playing together. And so now what do you have? You have Zynga. So this is this kind of thing where I wonder what was happening internally, right? Were they awake? Did they miss the opportunity? And so they had to think differently. They have to have their programmers constantly thinking that way. Now, the other big thing I keep hearing is about Henry Ford, and if he was told to, in the old days, make a better horse, that ate less hay, went further, was stronger, but instead he saw things differently. So what you have to ask yourself as an organization is, are you into disruptive innovation or incremental? It's a much scarier ride to be in the disruptive innovation. But that, in my opinion, is how these entities, and certainly the families that are my partners, have been able to survive. They are willing to disrupt their own business. Now, usually, they try to disrupt someone else's business. They keep their sacred cow, but they go into someone else's backyard and blow up their dreams. But they're willing to go for that. And what you don't want to be, unless you're I actually think this is a kind of innovative person here with the horse and the car. I just love it. But you can do mashups. What I like about this is I work in a lot of emerging markets. And for me, this is an awesome example of both disruptive and incremental at the same time. Now, Omar nailed it, so I'm not going to repeat any of that. Everything he said, I agreed with. Cross-pollinate. Talk, communicate, do. I'm a big fan of versioning. In the toilet space, I've seen everything from toilets that are like little rinky-dink plastic things to ones that sing and have music and heat and all kinds of crazy things. But once you find something that actually works in your experimentation phase, run with it. Start doing many, many versions of that. I've heard that said several times here. Totally agree with it. Now, is anyone in the military services here at all? Has been? No, you're all peaceful people? Great. Well, anyway, I have family that has been, and one of the things that I've always admired is the power of the special ops team. These people have nothing, an impossible mission, but what they have is this, I think it was a very polite term, professional will. I call it a fierce, tenacious energy to achieve whatever that mission is. So once you have the iteration, find your special ops, and don't look for them just in the people who are running the profit and loss center. Look in the unknown department with someone who's really being interesting but who wants to make a difference. They're probably 10 times hungrier and willing to work really hard to make their mark. So, we put parameters around our experimentation. No one has an infinite checkbook, at least we don't. And so what we always try to do is think about how much time are we going to give you, how much money are we going to do, and who's the talent we'll put on there. We know it won't be linear, but we have the parameter, and then we say go for it. This is my last part. So the big question is, how do you do it? In the days that I've been here, everyone kind of talks about this animalistic hunter model, Darwin, and everyone's talking about this predatory animal on the plains. The reality is, if you follow that model, what happens? You clear the market. You clean house. The problem with the hunting model alone is that you kill off all your prey, you absorb all the market, and then you're done. You actually have to start thinking more like a gardener. So you've seen this photo. This is what I call create the conditions of fertility. So Babson University is coming here to the area. Super excited about that. I think this is going to be amazing for the area and Saudi Arabia in particular, because they're going to help create an environment in which people think about doing things. Now, wouldn't it be awesome if the world was always perfect and there was always sunny skies? Oh, there's pretty much always sunny skies here, but just imagine, the day when there is that crazy storm. Who could have predicted the mortgage meltdown? Who could have predicted all the kind of craziness that's going on? One of the other firms that's here that I really admire and had a chance to speak to him, and I suggest you listen to him as well, is the Gensler Company. Now, you have to imagine building is a very cyclical business, ups and downs. It's very easy to get caught in the crossfire, but they thought intelligently and innovatively cycle after cycle after cycle. And what they had to do was choose. This is the day that no one likes, when you have to fire people, when you have to protect one project and not others, but pick the one and then stand strong. This is actually a picture from where my family's from. We live on a lake that has these crazy storms. So this is actually from my neighborhood. Now, I haven't seen this in Saudi Arabia yet, but pretty much anywhere else I go, there's always this strange phenomena of seeing an old building with like some plant growing out. Has anyone else seen that? It's a bizarre thing. Well, the reality is this happens to some of your ventures idea. It's not always sunshine. So you're going to have failures and sometimes epic failures that nearly kill you as an organization. So what I like to think of, back to the ecosystem model, is that you should recycle those nutrients. Take those lessons learned. Go to Oxford, go to Babson, learn from mentors, take some of that knowledge, and then re-put it in there. Do you have IP that's salvageable? Did you reach certain clients who maybe they want something else and you now know who they are? Do you have really talented people, or did you have people you thought were talented and were terrible? Learn those lessons, move on. Anyone want to guess how old this tree is, this forest? Any guesses? No, silence is not an answer. Any guess? It's 80,000 years old. And in fact, this is considered to be one living organism. This is in the US. It's an aspen tree. And underneath the trees is this incredibly complex, very deep root system. This, to my opinion, is how companies can last generation to generation. They interlattice all the different knowledge, they make it alive and move, and then, and this forest, by the way, has been burnt down to the ground. Wildfires have taken this thing clear down to the base root at the surface level, but it was so deep that it was able to, when the conditions were right, rise up again, sort of a nature's phoenix, if you will. So, last note, and then I would like to open it up to all the questions, is if you want to be around generation to generation, and I have yet to prove, because I have to pass it to my kids, so the pressure is on. Hold me to it, call me over the years, which is that we have to pass the lessons learned and the open-mindedness, and last but not least, the work ethic to be able to make that conglomerate or that company move forward. And if the company fails to make you feel part of that, if you're working part of a conglomerate, send that signal or find a place where you can thrive. And if you are running a business and you think everything is perfect, talk to your grandkids and see how happy they are that you're sitting, high in the mountain. Give them the space to grow, but also share your knowledge. Live the legacy. Don't wait to pass it down. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Michael, for pointing out the importance of experimenting, learning, and collaborating in the process of entrepreneurship. And also thank you for pointing out that while entrepreneurs may have strong stomachs, they still need a toilet. With that, we have a couple of minutes to ask a few quick questions. I appeal for you to keep the questions short so we can get as many as possible. So the gentleman up here in the front.
Hello, my name is Haytham Al-Tayyif. My question is, how can I make a balance between attracting top talent, creative people, building the entrepreneurial spirit in my team, versus for them to leave and starting their own business as entrepreneurs?
So maybe Chris and Nigel, would you like to take that question?
Sure, I didn't hear all of that. How do you recruit entrepreneurial people but keep your business running?
Retain them.
How can you retain them?
How do we retain them? Right.
Sure. How do you retain entrepreneurial people? I think already, a few colleagues have touched on that, and I think Michael touched on it as well. Be careful because they'll leave if you don't do that. And going back to the points I was making, I think you have to recognize that if we do want entrepreneurial businesses, we have to respond to both sides. That's the balance piece. And I think if you create an organization that is just to create a stable business growing slowly, that's what you'll get. And ultimately, I think it'll be decline. I think you have to infiltrate that with the allowances, as I call them, that allow the creative people to survive. The nature of large corporations is that actually the excuse, as I said earlier, of governance, because we have, as leaders, we often have insecurity. So the people that look like the
the radicals, we say, well, you can't do that because, and this is the 55 forms I think you talked about. So my view would be to recognize the environment they need. So I talked about a flat organization, very little hierarchy, allowing them to make mistakes, and right up the top, as the CEO, to talk about them. I suspect if the Post-it note example wasn't allowed to be talked about, you never would have had those two people coming together. So I think making allowances is very, very important, recognizing that. But equally, whether it's a family business or a listed company, you still have stakeholders. And there are always rules for every management team. Understand what those rules are, make sure they are minimal, and apply them consistently.
Thank you. Let's go to this side of the room and question on.
Dr. Susanna Qurashi, King Abdulaziz University. How to implementing the entrepreneurship culture? This is first question. The second one, what are the different conditions that trigger entrepreneurship? Thank you.
Can you repeat that first question?
The first one, how to implementing the entrepreneurship culture?
Okay. How to create an entrepreneurship culture. Umar and Michael, would you like to take a crack at that?
Sure. You know you're succeeding when they're creating value with real clients, right? So the question I think you're asking is, how do you do that? There's a mentor of mine, I think, who did an incredible job, and he wrote a book called Maverick. We talked about Mavericks today. A guy named Ricardo Semler. He's a Brazilian entrepreneur who had to operate in crazy conditions. So what did he do? He started out with a $4 million company that focused on heavy mixers to extract out of the earth in Brazil. And he had hyperinflation, government changes, coups, all kinds of stuff. Soccer matches, which would take his employees away from their production line. And so what he said was, okay, you know what? No rules. There is no operation manual to this company anymore. That was one. Two, you can walk in or out of meetings whenever you want. In fact, don't have them if at all possible. Be doing. The third was that he said, you know, you can claim your stake. So anyone could write what their salary would be, but everyone else would know. So I know a 24-year-old at the time who became 25 earning $1 million a year, but he brought in an incredible amount of business. And he said, I'm worth $1 million a year. And if you don't pay me that, I'll leave. Last but not least, I think that once you do that, those kind of three basic things, and we've tried to apply that in our environment, you have to hold people fiercely accountable. So now you've unleashed them. They said they're going to go do something. Shine that light bright on them so you can see that they're working or not working. Do not let them hide in some corner or skulk off if things aren't working perfectly. So that is the accountability component. And I think those help you really grow an entrepreneurial culture.
Sorry, can I just add
yes,
one?
Sure.
I just want to add something about meaningful work, right? Allow people to select work that is really meaningful to them and give them a sense of why they should be doing the work that they're doing, and that'll really drive a lot of motivation and innovation within the company, beyond just like do this work to increase shareholder value.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Hello, hi. Hello. Hi. My name is Ahmed Al-Abeid. I've always admired companies such as 3M and Google for allocating 10, 20% of the employees' time to be creative. My question is, how do you grant that time, and what structure do you put around it? And in addition to that, how do you reward entrepreneurs within the organization? Thank you.
How do you create a structure for innovation in companies?
How do you put structure around that free time granted to employees? So that free time, you can either sleep or you can be productive. How do you put structure around that? How do you guarantee that employees will actually be productive with that creative time? The second question is, how do you...
Let's take the first one. Anyone on the panel want to go for the first, Andrew? Yes.
I think the first thing to recognize is that if you give people freedom, you have to give them freedom. And if you give them time to spend on things that they are going to do by themselves, it is about invoking what's called intuitive motivation. And so the type of governance structure you have to put over that has to be quite loose. That's not to say that that governance doesn't exist, but the payback criteria, the time pressures around delivery, the expectations that are put on them, by the very nature of that being free time, have to be different.
this model works when you have a workforce that are deeply committed to their work, where they're intrinsically motivated, where they have a passion for the products that they produce, for the services that they produce. And so the structures that are put over them are very loose by virtue of the fact it's free time.
Thank you. Time for one last question. You have the last word.
Okay. My question is for startups, small businesses. Time is not a luxury that we have. People are, you're talking about a company of 3 or 4 people. You have to wear different hats, and really, you're pretty much focused on the micro and don't have enough time for allocating this extra time for strategy, especially for everyone else in the company. So how do we kind of squeeze that in to that very busy schedule? Thanks.
Michael?
I think that if you're in survival mode, you have chosen your battle, right? So that's the very first thing. But if you have, while you're in survival mode, the idea that you must pursue, but you do not have the resources, find what I would consider, like you see it in nature, be the pilot fish. Choose your great white shark who's already feeding in the waters that you're interested in, and bring value to them. And if I look at the gathering here, it's like, yeah, there are some amazing companies here, but you would have to have a pretty exceptional idea in order for them to want to share those resources. But nowadays, companies are pretty open to that. So I would say, find your great white shark.
Yes, go ahead.
I would agree all with that. I would just add that, don't forget, we are, I guess, as management, we're often looking at what our problems are, and we should look at what our strengths are too. One of the things you are not encumbered with are the problems we talked about today. You don't have hundreds of people needing to meet, sending off thousands of emails, boring each other to death about everything that is being discussed. So, use the ability of a small team that you've got to literally walk around the office. I remember we have a phrase, it was so easy 15 years ago, and I could get everyone in my management team around the water fountain. Today I have to catch planes from Sydney to San Francisco. You don't have that today. Celebrate that and give an opportunity for the 4 of you to sit down over lunch and talk about some ideas, all the problems you've got. And the one way I would do it is for you to stay in touch with the business. Try and revolve between all 4 jobs, because you'll get some leadership skills that you haven't got today and experiences, and they'll get your wisdom. And together, that's it's a relative game at the end too. You just have to beat the company alongside you. That's also 4 people.
Please, yes.
I think the backbone to promote the entrepreneurship is the culture of the company. The culture of the company should be open-minded. It should have open communication. So all the employees should have some feeling. Mistake is accepted, even though it is not celebrated. And he can say anything to the management, and that is given the attention and appreciation. So the backbone is the company culture. You should make a great workplace. Thank you.
So I'd like to bring this to a close by thanking my panel for putting some very intriguing and bringing to the table some very thoughtful ideas. I hope that you can see that whether you are dealing with a 4-person startup or a mega corporation, the process of entrepreneurship has a lot of themes that you've heard very much in common: the importance of leadership, team building, crowdsourcing, the importance of culture and creativity. That those at the very fundamental level are the same. So I want to thank you all for being a great audience, and thank you for providing us with a great set of ideas.